Wow. All right. Welcome to part 2 of my slow seduction. Wait, wrong book. Slow seduction chat. my so yes, the book went live today in audio, paperback, and ebook all at once, which I guess the sales numbers combined together somehow for certain rankings or whatever. So Um, all right, here's a question from the social stream. Deborah asks, how many cats sit on me while I write? When I'm writing at my desk, only one can really get on me, but I often write in bed. I've been had a couple of years now where I've been suffering from sort of attacks of anemia and whatnot, where I'm get very fatigued. My brain usually still works pretty well, and my fingers work fine, but it's like I just don't. Sitting up becomes such an effort that I can't, or leaving the house becomes like impossible. So when you're anemic, you're cold because it's basically there's just not enough red blood cells doing what they're supposed to do. So I'll just be in bed, and the two white tabbies, Oolong and his brother, will just glom onto me basically. And it's rare for me to get all three though for some reason. Sometimes they rotate, but it's like territorially all three of them will not share me at the same time. I'm not sure why, but yes, hello. Um, so yeah, so sometimes one, sometimes two, but all day yesterday it was two. They were, no, Sunday. Yeah, I decided to write from bed, and they were just like, "Yay!" you know, they think it's the greatest thing ever and it's been cold. I mean, I'm in the Boston area, and it has been really, really cold this winter. I know polar vortex is the watchword, right? And it's just been really, really cold, and even with modern heating methods and so forth. The house was built in 1887, so it's sort of spottily insulated and whatnot like that. And you can feel when it's cold outside. It really feels different inside the house, even with the heat on and everything. So good time to curl up with a hot tea and a book. And actually, I really like the hot laptop. It's great. It's warm. Of course, sometimes I'll be on the laptop, and Oolong will want to be on the laptop instead of on my arms, but so be it. Um, the You can see why there are all those cat mysteries out there, though, that all these mystery writers always end up writing a book about their cats. It's why it's a genre. It's like you can just see how that has to be a thing, because some of them become very present while you're creating. But all right, some more questions. Remember, you can ask me questions in the social stream. You can text me uh, or use AIM. That says pinstripe pen. Um, but here's the phone number one more time. I feel like an infomercial. Yeah, you can't actually buy anything by calling this number. You can just send me messages. So yes, I have a little window here where I can see your text messages, or AIM will come into my iMessage window. Or if you're watching this video live, come into the social stream on Ustream there, and you can make comments. But just warning, if your Twitter account is connected, it will tweet everything you say. So uncheck that or whatever, if you don't want to be spamming your followers with everything you're saying to us right now. Okay, let's see. All right, so some more questions. Let's see. Demons in Music, Your Trip to England. Where are we? What are your favorite kinks and fetishes, and how do they affect your writing? Um, okay, so I was saying earlier that I have very varied tastes. Um, I'm bisexual and I'm a switch, and and I've suffered my entire life. I shouldn't say suffered because I've kind of enjoyed it in a way, actually. That I've enjoyed my gender dysphoria for my entire life. Um, so it's like you make do with what you've got, and what you don't got, you just have to have up here. I think that's a large part of why I'm a writer, is that all the things that I can't have in life because I'm a 5'4" female, I can have in my fantasy world, easily enough. Um, so, uh, and honestly, reality has not been all that limiting to me as far as I'm concerned. Um, so the thing is, I have a lot on my smorgasbord. In my love life has been very, very varied, and so I've gotten to experience many, many things. But I have my favorite things. as I've gotten older, my pain tolerance has gone down, um, and so I don't have some of the kind of pain challenge fantasies that I used to. But uh, yeah, I don't know. I've evolved over time too. I mean, when I first came out into BDSM, I was not really submissive at all. I was essentially what was called a smart-ass masochist, and it took, it took a couple of people sort of putting me in my place for me to discover, oh, actually, this is kind of fun, that, oh, there's this really interesting psychological place where I go, and that's, and discovered that, like that the super competent fetishist in me is really, really into service in that way. So, but it a lot of it depends on my partners too, and who I'm with and what they want, and so forth and so on. It's a two-person ballroom dance, so it's not just, oh, I make my list of fetishes and then I go out looking for somebody. I mean, it's just not that simple. Maybe for some people it is, but it hasn't been my experience. So that even when you have that long list of, it's like, it's funny because now there's, OkCupid and Match.com and whatever, and people tell, I haven't done any of them, but people tell me, oh, yeah, and it's this long questionnaire, and there's like this long list of, check boxes or whatever that you can put about things that you like, don't like. And I'm thinking, well, in the old days of, the old days, like around 1992, I remember there being circulating a lot of like questionnaires on alt sex bondage, and the news groups and whatever, that were like this long list of fetishes, where, so like you could check off your things, and you could hand that to somebody that you met, who could look at it and see whether you had compatible fetishes or not. But it's like, I don't know, the the list is so long, and so much of what I'm interested in can't just be encapsulated by a list. It's not like a list of sex toys. I'm kind of, the compatibility comes from a more sort of psychological approach to it, I think. It's like, um that, yeah, I don't know. It's better to just sit down and talk with people and whatever. And I mean, now it's easy. I can say, well, first of all, read my book, and then tell me if you liked or disliked this, and I'll tell you where I am or am not like my characters, because my characters are not me. They are all me in a little way, but Karina has likes and dislikes that are not the same as mine, in some ways. And, but what's fun is because she's new at it and I'm experienced now, is getting to write a character who's new at it is sort of, kind of fun, because then I get to, I get to put back in some of my sort of early experiences of encountering things that I thought I was going to be afraid of. And then when I finally tried them, it's like, oh my God, that's the best thing ever. I that happens to me again and again in BDSM, where it's um, like, oh wow, I really didn't expect to actually really like that. Like I thought I was gonna hate hot wax for some reason. I don't know why, but, and maybe it depends on how it's introduced to you. But when a top that you're really, really, really hot for wants to do something, and you say okay, but you're thinking to yourself, well, um, boy, this is really going to suck, but it'll be worth it, because afterwards, because this is the thing, when you're a masochist, you're like, stuff that you hate, you kind of like, because you're like, okay, this is really going to hurt, but then afterwards, it's going to be really great, because you're going to be like, you're going to have an endorphin high, you're going to have this connection to the person that you let do this to you, and so forth. And then so much of the time you're like, wow, that wasn't bad at all. I really enjoyed that. It's just, which maybe endorphins infecting your uh, whatever, affecting your hindsight, but a lot of the time it isn't. It's at the moment that it happens. You're just like, I mean, the very first time I ever did knife play with somebody, I've always fetishized knives and thought they were wonderful and beautiful looking, and so forth and so on, but I never actually really had a cutting thing. But then the first time I ever did a cutting scene with somebody, I was just like, wow, that was the best thing ever. I mean, it was like the second that the knife touched my skin, I was just like, this is great. It's just like, I don't know, it's like taking a taste of something that you're looking at, and you're like, I'm not sure I'm gonna like that, and the second it hits your tongue, you're like, oh, okay, that's good. Like, I don't know, some kind of ice cream or something that you're like, well, other people seem to be liking it, I guess I'll try it. And then you're like, oh, okay, that's awesome, when can I have that again? Kind of a thing. um so, yeah. All right, some questions here. Thinking of recent long power outages, have I ever lost important work? I am an absolute nut about backing up. And I think because probably the last time I lost significant work was, probably in college. And I hate redoing things that much. I mean, I don't mind rewriting, I don't mind working on the text that's there, but having to start again from scratch because something was lost because I didn't back it up, or something like that, just I recall doing it once. I think it was a term paper or something like that, and I just it's like somehow trying to, because you try to make your thoughts go back through exactly the way that they came out, and it's just terrible. So I'm a complete I'm OCD about this, where it's like every time I finish, say I'm working on a document, get partway through a scene and like, okay, I'm gonna go make lunch. I email it to myself. And now I have a moment in time frozen where that backup is there, is in the cloud. It's in Gmail, it's in Yahoo Mail, wherever. I usually mail it from a Gmail account to a Yahoo account, so it's in both places. So it's like, yes, that's how I am. And then, if while I'm at lunch, the house catches on fire, my laptop burns, a plane crashes, whatever, and destroys the thumb drive that I had, and so forth and so on. Well, you know what? I can go to the library and access my Gmail and it's there. So yeah, it's the quickest, easiest backup method. And then I have a regular sort of cloud storage backup that runs every night, like every 24 hours, and does the whole machine and all that kind of stuff. But it's like $50 a year or something, and it's completely worth it. It has saved my life so many times where I've been on the road and had a hard drive crash during a convention at one point, and was like, I can't just not work for 5 days while I'm here. I was literally in the airport on the way to a convention when I had a hard drive crash, and I was like, I have to do something, and was able to work on some things. Yeah, I just, that's how much I hate losing things. So power goes out, this, that, the other. These days, if the power and internet go out, um, unless it's like a major hurricane or something, I can go down to the Starbucks and get on the Wi-Fi there, and use their plug, and they have tea, and so forth. So it's like it's very, very hard to stop my train from running. The only thing that stops my train from running is me being sick. So yeah, I'm very, very serious about that. But all right, Deborah asks, are romance readers more receptive to switches and bisexuals? Um, Now, I don't know if they are. I sort of, um, I think that a lot of romance readers are getting more adventurous, because I think the romance readership has always been more adventurous than some of the romance publishing companies were. I mean, Harlequin was so conservative, and I don't mean that in the right wing sense. I mean that just in the, like, here's what we do, and we just kind of do it over and over again, um, kind of sense. That they didn't want to take a lot of chances. And the hunger out in the readership was definitely for more BDSM and more paranormal and more vampires and more this and more that, and they were not giving it to them. And that's really where a lot of the rise of the early successes in digital publishing were romance, because that hungry readership was like, we want more threesomes, we want more menage a trois, with two guys and one woman, and we want more, and you're just not giving it to us. And so other companies came along to sort of fill that gap. What's happened with 50 Shades of Grey suddenly becoming so huge, I think, was basically a proof that there was a huge market out there for it, and the fact that it wasn't being served. And that, I mean, this is how it basically went. The true story of how Slow Surrender came to be was, the day that 50 Shades of Grey was on the cover of the New York Times was a Friday. And my agent called me that day and she said, you know how all these book editors at every house in New York, we've circulated your proposals to all these places. Every single one of them has said, no, 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 Cecilia Tan is too kinky for us. She's like, they're all going to call me on Monday and say, why do you not have a proposal from Cecilia Tan on my desk? So because all of a sudden they were like, oh, it's like the scales fell from their eyes, and they were like, oh, this thing that we've been turning down for 20 straight years, basically, because we're like, no, 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 we can't go there. No, 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 we can't go there. All of a sudden they were like, oh, okay, I guess we can go there. And I guess we're behind the curve now. Yes, because you've been suppressing something that the population has been doing and wanting, and, so forth, for decades already. So, Elizabeth says in the social stream, kink is more acceptable these days in the RWA. Yes, yes, it is. And I mean, the proof is in the dollar amounts basically that people are spending. Um, Still working on GLBT. Yes. I think bisexuals are still distrusted sort of in romance because is it is seen as the speaking as a bisexual and as a bisexuality activist, I will say that one of the perceptions that bisexuals are labeled with is that we're somehow inconstant, that we are like we can't make up our minds, and we're cheaters, and that the only way a bisexual could ever get our needs met or whatever would be cheating. And this is the uh, this is of course not true. First of all, there's polyamory, but many I know many people are monogamous. They themselves are monogamous and they want to read monogamous pairings, so that's fine. I'm not against that, but I'm saying that, and then you think, well, but if I have a bisexual character, for them to really have, whatever, then you have to put them in a threesome, and it's like, okay, and that's a whole, like, that has to be its own category, really. Um, what gets me off emotionally in romance is when characters' needs are very unique and different, and they find that one person who fits them like a key in a lock. And whether that's that they actually need to have two people, or they need to have, or what. Um, you know, uh, that to me has always been my thing. And, from when I was little, and the thing is that the place I find that happening most often is usually science fiction and fantasy, but where there's, I don't know, alternative family structure, or there's, whatever unique situation that the author is able to create so that it's totally believable that this person, whatever, needs three partners and one who can fertilize an egg, or whatever it is. And so, okay, I think I stole that from Star Trek, but you know what I mean. um, so it's like, okay, I have totally unique needs, and metaphorically that maps to, me, the reader, being a unique human being and having my unique needs. So that works for me somehow. Um, but yeah, regular male romance is going great guns. There are a lot of imprints out there. A lot of people writing it. A lot of people reading it. There have been little flare-ups though within that community though, saying like ew, we don't want any women like sneaking in, kind of. And there, one reviewer really got people upset when she basically said she felt disrespected by writers who put either bisexual male characters in, or put female characters in who, like, it was okay for female characters to be in there, but she didn't want them having sex with them. And I'm like, have you seen the actual statistics on how many gay men and gay identified men have sex with women? Um, if you just go by how many gay men I've had sex with, like, it's a pretty high number, potentially. So, but it's like, again, what happens in your real life is not actually a defense for a fiction writer, because realism and verisimilitude are two different things. And what you need to do is you have to write something that's convincing, as opposed to something that you it's not a defense to say, no, that's the way my real life went. It's like, look, but you're writing fiction, not a memoir. And so, I understand people have their specific tastes, and this is, I mean, it's just like food. There are people who are like, who don't like cilantro, and and really are just like, can't stand cilantro. And it's like, okay, but then maybe you shouldn't be eating at Thai restaurants. Kind of a thing where it's like, okay, but so I can understand, all right, and maybe they don't, maybe they're like, I avoid Mexican food, I avoid Thai food because I don't eat cilantro. But then they're sort of pissed off when it gets snuck into something, when they're at, a French restaurant or something, and then the chef is doing fusion of some kind. It's like, yeah, okay, so it needs to be clearly marked, I guess is what I would say. And, in Slow Surrender, basically our main pairing are, you know, it's a male female pairing. It's, and I'm writing this completely heterosexual action, so forth and so on. And people are like, how do like, I don't know, like, Cecilia, how did you live? When so much of else what I write, either the characters are bisexual or they're gay. And it's basically, I said, well, I just made all the characters in the background um, trans, gay, or bisexual, basically. Okay, not all of them, but probably 90% of the other characters. I also made most of them not white, um, you know, because I just felt like I needed some diversity, in the book. And it's like, and it's in New York City, so it's, there's there's no shortage of people of every possible ethnicity, you know. So Seduction, there's more white people because it's in England, and I'm not as knowledgeable about non-white uh, subcultures and whatnot, and and it's like a lot of rich art donors and stuff like that, and whatnot. So I didn't make that one as specifically, just because it's not my milieu. But um, let's see. Chris asks, do I have any interest in writing a memoir? Actually, I have had plans to write a memoir for a while now, and I've set up a website where my plan was I was going to write, like a post every 2 weeks that would be sort of like a chapter of it, or you know, something like that. But I've been too busy writing these romance novels to get that off the ground. But yes, I'm thinking I'm going to call it Not Safe for Work, because that's the only way that's the only way I can think to make it clear to people that, no, really, there's probably going to, in the chapters where there is no sex, that will be the rare ones, so most likely, but, all right, what is your next trilogy going to be about or feature? All right, so I haven't actually decided what I'm going to write next. The book 3 of this trilogy comes out in August. And until then, I'm going to be very wrapped up in promoting it and I'm doing a lot of conventions. I'm going to the RWA convention. I'm going to Romantic Times. I'm going to go do a convention called Authors After Dark in Charlotte in August. And I'm doing the Geeky Kink event. I'm doing, doing a ton of appearances this year, to help do everything I can to help these books get off the ground. But so, yeah, so when that slows down a little, hopefully by then I will have decided what I'm going to do next. Among the things that are floating around in my head, I'd like to write a sequel to The Prince's Boy, which is by far the gayest thing I've ever written. It's like all the characters in the entire thing are male. There is one cameo by a female character in 200,000 words. Not kidding. But I did that on purpose. Not for the people who are like, oh no, I think girls have cooties. I mean, I did it on purpose as a way of saying this is an entirely male milieu. It's a high fantasy world, and most of it takes place within a military milieu, and so forth. And I said the only way to avoid having to do some kind of crazy world building where either women are, there's some class of women which are oddly equal, or, whatever, or I just have to avoid the entire subject. And part of it was that because the theme of the book is all built around masculinity and its meanings and, so forth and so on, that book's all men. The sequel, on the other hand, though, would be my opportunity to start introducing female characters. Because the sequel will have them traveling to other lands also where, strange and exotic customs take place, and, so forth. So Mary says, I think The Prince's Boy is the gayest thing I've ever read. Yes, and I'm not usually monosexual in any way, but that was one of the most monosexual things I've ever written. The Darren's Guitar Chronicles, of course, is just going to continue. That's right now. I don't know where the end of it. I've been terrible at predicting how long it's going to be, so we'll know when we get to the end. And trust me, I've got a plan. I just don't know how long it's going to take. So that's continuing on in the background at all times. That's my online serial that is I have sort of plans in the back of my head for what I think could possibly be a series of a sort of so here's the thing. I came up with this idea in the middle of writing Magic University, which is a 4-book series. But is the idea that vampires are not real, but there is a kind of sort of blood, sex, magic magician who is mistaken for one, essentially by muggles. So what I might end up writing is something about them that, they're sort of this. So the thing is, it would be like a paranormal romance about vampires, except that they're not vampires. They're humans who tap into a magical power through blood sex magic. And the thing is, I don't know if the mainstream publishers will go for that or not, because it's like, well, it is paranormal, but it's not really the paranormal you're used to. And it's BDSM, but it's not this kind of BDSM. It's, I don't know. ritualistic bloodletting might not fly in the mainstream. I don't know, but this is the thing. They told me for 20 years, you're too kinky for us. And now, so I'm hoping that these books will be, the slow surrender books will be popular enough that I will be able to push the envelope a little bit in the next book with whatever it is. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm writing the notes for that book right now, handwriting them in a notebook as if I'm a character who doesn't know anything about this, this secret blood sex magic cult and is gradually finding it out. So right now I'm still making these notes as if they're written from, this this character's point of view, who is wrong about many things. That's the thing, is that so many of the things he's writing down turn out to be just his mistaken impressions of how things work. So I don't know, but this is the strange way that my muse seems to work, though, is that it wants me to not know what's going to happen, because then that ruins the surprise, and then I find out basically only ever so shortly before everyone else. um, yeah, so ooh, somebody says DGC is the only web serial of which I have never grown bored. I hope you and he have much more to say. Yes, there is much more to come. And we are coming to Ziggy's Diary soon, too. Those of you who follow Darren's Guitar Chronicles. Soon, very soon. As soon as we get Darren out of Australia. Anyway, which is coming soon, yes. Let's see. Oh, so I started on this earlier. What other books on BDSM do you recommend? This was somebody asked me. So I was originally saying the original Sinners series, which includes The Siren and numerous other ones, from Tiffany Rez. I'm actually not 100% sure how to pronounce her name. Rez, Reisz. Fantastic books. I mean, just original, different. I love stuff that breaks the mold, and it's like you can still see the mold was there, but it's been completely shattered. I mean, just absolutely love them. I'm totally, totally in love with, if you have not been reading them yet, Allison Tyler's memoirs. She's been writing them. She originally wrote them sort of as a series of blog posts in like 2006, I think. And now they're being sort of reshaped and reformed into books that Cleus Press is publishing. The first one was called Dark Secret Love, and book 2 is just coming out now, called The Delicious Torment. You want to read a fantastic romance with BDSM and whatever. The Delicious Torment is like, I think it just became one of my favorite books ever. And I got to read a review copy of it. I got a PDF review copy of it, and now I'm like, okay, I'm going to go out and buy it, because I'm choking up thinking about it. Okay, this is an affecting romance. Go buy this book. Yeah, it was every bit as satisfying and fantastic as a fictional, book is, and just this isn't really a spoiler, especially if you read her blog previously, but it's got a lot of the things that I like in it. Not just BDSM, but there's a threesome. There's the negotiating of difficult boundaries. All this kind of thing. It's like I just love that stuff. So yeah. So I recommend those. The Of course, the Marketplace series. If you've not read them, still some of my favorite books of all time, and I am so happy that I am now the publisher of them through Circlet Press. Just a fangirl for all those years, and now I'm the one responsible for getting them onto the shelves and into the bookstores. And the Marketplace by Laura Antoniou. If you have not, just Google the Marketplace and maybe add BDSM so that you don't get, I don't know, the Wall Street Marketplace or something. Fantastic books. And again, I like a wide variety, and there's every different kinds of sexuality, every different gender expression, every different way to slice it among the characters there. So I'm just that's my thing. I like variety. Here's a question: do you enjoy the promotional work, conventions, readings, and such? I do. I love going out and drinking in the adulation of the public, basically. But it's tiring, is the thing. I'm an introvert by nature, and so it took me years to learn this, that I should not just go to a convention and not eat and not sleep for 3 straight days and then come home and crash. That what I should do is pace myself a little bit more, and and plan out. Okay, I'm going to go out. I'm going to do this thing, and then I'm going to plan to have time in the room by myself and drink a cup of tea, or plan to have a quiet meal with some friends, and whatnot, and decompress, and whatnot. And that, yeah, I love traveling. I love going to different places and meeting people, and trying out different things and whatnot. And it's been the case that fortunately I can bring a laptop with me and I can work just about anywhere. I trained myself to be able to work under almost any circumstances, planes, trains, automobiles, hotel lobbies. It doesn't always work, but just um, making that mental space, like I am now going to write. And planes are great because what else can you do? You're sort of stuck there. Yes, there's that part in the beginning and that part in the end where they make you turn off your electronic devices, but okay, so I think about stuff during then, and then by the time I open the laptop, I'm ready to go. You know, um, the okay, so I said the spoilery questions were going to come in this section, but I'm going to still attempt to not spoil them too terribly much. But um, the someone wrote, "Are we going to meet James's family since this book takes place in the UK?" What's interesting is that we don't meet James's family in this book, but you are going to eventually meet some in book 3. You're going to meet Karina's family too. We've already met her sister, but you're going to meet her mother. You're going to meet both their mothers in book 3. Um, the How can I put it? It the um, Karina repairing her relationship with her mother is every bit as important as her finding sort of love and acceptance in her pair relationship, as far as I'm concerned. And this is one of those things too that I read a lot of literature, I think about things a lot, and one of the things that was bugging me recently is that nobody has parents in books, and it's like at first I thought it's just a like a I don't know, it's a fantasy thing, where oh yeah, the hero goes off to whatever, but you never hear about the hero's parents or grandparents. It's like they always have to be an orphan like Harry Potter, which still leaves you wondering, okay, but what about his grandparents? And that wizards live a long time, and all that kind of thing. Why doesn't he have like a ton of relatives looking after him? If James Potter was supposedly the scion of this big family, this big bloodline, you know, his grandparents, his great grandparents, whatever, should still be around. It's like, but okay, I get it. He's the hero, so he has to be, kind of like the protagonists are not allowed to have parents, and and then I started looking at other books on my shelves, and either they have no parents or their parental relationship has to be really important somehow in it. And I don't know, Infinite Jest. It's like Hal's relationship to his parents is there's all this Oedipal stuff and so forth and so on in there. Of course there is, and there's the whole Hamlet thing going on with him as well. So it's like, yeah, either they're like Hamlet, where it's like, okay, the shadow of my parent relationship with my parents hangs over me, or it's like, oh no, parents, what are those? And it's just like so many books where you're like, the parents are either already dead for whatever reason, or they're just never mentioned, like they're just not a part of the protagonist's life. And I'm like, how many people do you know who actually really just separated from their parents, who like whose mother doesn't call you? I mean, my mother and I are friends on Facebook, so she knows everything that's going on. Of course she does. I mean, I'm close with my mother, but I'm like, even people I know who are sort of estranged from their parents are still like, you know, like they're still hanging over them, sort of. So I was like, okay, Karina's got this whole thing about her mother's idea of what femininity is and what a relationship should be like, and so forth and so on. But then her mother hasn't successfully maintained a relationship either. So the two of them have to come to an understanding somehow, and that's going to happen in book 3. This is not a surprise to any of you who have read the setup in book 1. Um, the thing about the third act is that all the dominoes you set up in book 1 and in the first half of book 2 all have to fall in the second half of book 2 and in in book 3. That's just how it works. You set them up and then you knock them down. So um, uh, what's funny is there are a couple of little loose ends, but and it came to turning in the manuscript, I'm writing to my editor and I'm like, okay, but do you think we need to talk, do we need to say what happened to this person? Do we need to say what happened to that person? And she's like, you're gonna have 10 epilogues if it's like, leave a couple things to the imagination of the reader. I'm like, okay, fine. You get hints about what's going to happen with some of the secondary characters and whatever, and who knows, maybe at some point they'll let me write some short stories, some novellas about some of the secondary characters. I brought in a bunch of secondary characters that I thought I was also going to be able to tie up their stories with by book 3, but I really didn't. You know, the focus really is 100%. It's all James and Karina basically in book 3. So, which you all deserve for having, you know, stuck with it through the previous 2 books. That, you know, you get a lot of James and Karina in book 3. Um, let's see, other questions I have here. Let's see. Okay, someone already said, what are you working on now? And oh, so one thing I should tell you, any of you who are in New York City, I'm going to be reading on February 3rd in the Between the Covers reading series. It's the Uptown reading series in Riverdale. It's at an Irish pub called Anbel Bocht. So you can find the information on my website, whatnot. But yeah, February 3rd, that's next week. It's a Monday night, so come on down. I will have some copies of the book to give away, and so forth. I said I was going to give away a copy of the book, didn't I? Okay. How am I going to do this? So I don't necessarily want you to out yourselves in the social stream if you are lurking and, you know, whatnot. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to email me. It's very easy to find my email address. This is a test. You go to ceciliatan.com, and my email address is listed there, but you should see it easily. You're going to go to ceciliatan.com, and you're going to send me in your email why you think you should win this book. Very simple. You know, it can be as little as 1 sentence, or you can write more, whatever you feel. You know, don't go crazy. Just, why do you want a copy of Slow Seduction? And I will be autographing it and mailing it, you know, an actual physical copy. I'm not actually allowed to give out the ebooks. I don't think. I don't control the DRM or whatever. So, you know, unlike with the books I publish myself, where I have, you know, I can hand out the ebook copies easily. With these, all they give me is the paperbacks. So, you know, have any of you out there heard the audio editions yet? I have not had time to hear the whole audio book of book 1. They sent it to me on CD. You know, it's kind of cool. It's a neat little package, and you know, multiple CDs in it, because it's like 10 hours or something. And I'm like, yeah, when am I going to have 10 hours to listen to this? Just, you know, so, and I know what happens already, obviously. So, what's funny is if I go to if I go to write a sequel of The Prince's Boy, I have audiobooks of The Prince's Boy that they did at audible.com. And what I might do to, you know, refresh my memory of everything that happens in the entire book, it's 2 books really, is I might listen to the audio finally. Like I've listened to pieces of it, you know, like I had to hear the audition and, you know, so forth and so on, but I've never listened to it all the way through. Audio is interesting because it's very different from the reading experience, you know, when you sit down and you sort of immerse yourself in a book, whereas with audio, it's kind of like you can be doing something else while you're listening to it, and, you know, you can be driving and whatnot. And I don't know if I recommend this for authors, though, because I think you can get very involved in your own book. And I listened to the audiobooks of Darren's Guitar Chronicles when they were done on Audible, and I had to drive to New York and back in a very short period of time. Like I had to drive down one day and drive back the next day. I was very tired and whatnot. And I thought, oh, I'll listen to these while I'm driving, you know, and whatnot. Put them on downloaded them to my phone, and, you know, whatnot. And I think I possibly almost drove off the road a couple of times because my head was not at all. And, you know, you're sort of on autopilot, but then, you know, thinking about this and I'm thinking about that, and, you know, listening to Darren's story. And it was just like very, very absorbing. And then, you know, like at one point I was, you know, those are so long that it took more than the drive down, the drive back. And then at home doing stuff, I was like, you know, like cooking something in the kitchen and cleaning something and whatever. And at some point I realized I was just standing there in the middle of the floor listening, you know, like you know, just standing there like, oh, what am I in the middle of? You know, like I couldn't somehow couldn't multitask at certain points. Some points I was okay, but because it's my story, I think I got so involved in it that I was like, yeah, okay, I should just, but then I couldn't also picture myself just sort of forcing myself to sit and listen. You know, I'm like, I don't know, yeah, there's too much going on for me to literally just sit still and just listen to something. It's like, okay, I have my times when I meditate, but they're pretty short, honestly. I'm not a big meditate. I should meditate more. I'm sure that would improve my health and my concentration and all that. But right now, you know, I'm still at high, even with the anemia and everything, I'm still at a high speed part of my life, I guess. I am slowing down. I am consciously slowing down so that I can enjoy life more, and I can, you know, and I can refill the creative engine is one of the things too, is that if you're always doing and never stopping, then I think that my subconscious doesn't fill up. Um, so, but I don't have to stop for very long, I guess is the thing. And everything you put in comes out somewhere, or everything that comes out has to have come in from somewhere. I think Ringo Starr said something about that about music. And it's like, yeah, everything that comes out comes from in you, but everything that's in you came from outside, you know. And yes, you're the filter. You're the thing that makes the thing unique. The same input into someone else is going to come out different. You know, that's the part where the unique voice, the unique writer, comes in. But um, there's no sometimes there's no predicting sort of how it's going to come out. So I don't always know where things are going to come out. So it's like when I went to England, I had this idea that maybe at that time I was planning the book, that maybe it was going to I had started writing it, and maybe it was going to fit in somewhere or be part of it, and of course it was. But then but there are things that you don't plan that still come in, or I'm trying to think of an example. The I think that happens to me more actually sometimes when I'm writing science fiction and fantasy, where I have to translate something out of my real life into a sort of fictional setting or something. But whether it's something, I don't know, crazy my cat did, or you know trying to think. The I mean, of course, the big historical events always get processed also through our literature. I mean, I don't know, September 11th, the marathon bombings. I'm sure that's going to come out somewhere, you know, um, and I can't predict where. And I don't know whether that's going to come out in a romance novel or if it's going to come out in an adventure novel. I don't know. Um, but I know that I process my stuff, you know, while writing fiction. There's no way around it. I mean, when you sit down to write fiction, what you are doing essentially is revealing your subconscious to yourself. It's all hidden, and then you start writing and you show it. It it comes out. That's what happens in therapy too. Let's just bump the laptop. Right? You sit down in front of the therapist and you talk and you and you reveal what's going on underneath, right? Um, and so, not that I would say replace therapy with fiction writing. I mean, like I said, you don't get to predict what's going to come out, and sometimes you don't know which direction to take it. I think a trained therapist has its perks. They're there for a reason. But uh yeah, but there's no doubt about it that writing is a form of therapy. Um, Let me see. Remember, put your questions in the stream. Text them to me. Actually, oh, there is one that's in a text. Okay, now it's a comment. I can't read to you. That's not safe for work. It's not even safe for not work. The Before we run out of time, I should also tell you. So book 3 is going to be called Slow Satisfaction, of course. And actually, I've got the cover of it is on the back of this one because they've signed it already. It's still with the pearls, but with the purple, I don't know, super pearl, whatever it is, and it'll be out August 26th. So another 8 months. I know. The I never really did answer what are my favorite kinks and fetishes question, did I? So one of my favorite kinks, as you might have guessed, if you read Slow Surrender, is delayed gratification. Which is perfect for a fiction writer because, of course, everything is about delaying essentially the payoff that comes in the end of a book until the end. I mean, in a trilogy, you get to delay it all the way till the end of the third book. The That's not actually true. My theory was that you go through all this trouble through the first two books. All of book three should essentially be a reward for the reader. Doesn't quite work out that way. They have, our main couple has some things to work out between them, but a lot of it is reward sex, is what I call it. Where it's like, okay, and now I get to write the really hot scene in Las Vegas and the really hot scene at his house and the really hot scene, whatever that clearly you've been waiting for two whole books already. Um, so the I had to cut some of them out actually because the book was too long. Let's put it that way. So the one thing I should tell you actually is so there are bonus scenes that are not in the books. This is like DVD extras on a on a movie, right? The way you get them is by sending me photos or screen captures, either of you seeing the book in the wild, you see it on sale at a bookstore or whatever, take a picture and send it to me. Or if you have bought a copy of the book, like you mail ordered it, take a picture of yourself with the book, with or without your pearls, or your pet with the book, and send it to me. Um, or if you bought it on your Kindle or your e-reader, you can take a picture of the e-reader, so forth and so on. Send it to me. You're basically trading me a photo for a hot scene. I have a couple of them to offer, including James wrote a thing from James's point of view for Slow Surrender, of one of the scenes in Slow Surrender from his point of view. Only he wouldn't just write a scene, he had to write an entire 9-page treatise on what love is, because that's James, right? Go figure. And the other thing you can trade me is a screen capture of yourself recommending the book to your friends on Facebook, Twitter, blogging about it, Goodreads, whatever. You do something nice for me in the book, I give you smut. Very simple. So, and again, just email me, ceciliatan.com. You'll see my email address. Contact me. When Soul Surrender came out, we did this, and I sent it to a whole bunch of people, and then I put up some Tumblr posts with the various pictures of everybody, with their pearls on and their pets with their pearls on, and so forth and so on. So, and yes, I'm a sucker for cats, dogs, birds, whatever, especially if they're posing with my smutty book. Um, yes, they're cute. In fact, I think I still have some that I haven't posted yet, so maybe I'll do those soon to remind people. Do that for book two. I don't think book two's in Target the way book one is, but it but it's certainly in Barnes and Noble and hopefully in your local independent bookstore, I would hope. Um, and if it's not, it's from a major publisher. They can get it easily. I would encourage them to. But like I said, because of the 50 Shades effect, we don't have to fight as hard to put some erotic books into bookstores. But I will say this about the indie bookstores in the 90s and the indie presses, were very closely allied. We a lot of what they sold were our books and so forth. But we understand it's a very difficult business right now. But I saw there was a column in PW, Published Weekly, recently from an indie bookseller basically saying, "Dear authors, if you're going to link to where your book is on sale on your website, please don't just link to Amazon. Please link to your local indie bookstore, so forth and so on." And I basically wrote back saying, "Okay, I'm totally down with this, but there's the fact that my local indie bookstore, which is a very good bookstore, does not carry any of my indie books. So sorry, like I'd love to, but you know what? You don't have an erotica section." Most indie bookstores do at least have a small erotica section, or now they have like a romance section, which is specifically and if you read 50 Shades, you will also like this section. But they don't carry any of the circlet books. One of our fairly large local independent booksellers doesn't carry any of the independent gay and lesbian presses, which are not smut as far, in that sense. I mean, but yeah, they don't carry Bold Strokes books. They don't carry Magnus books. They don't carry Allison. They probably have some Cleus Press books, but maybe that's it because Cleus is kind of not considered so much, in the book trade, they're not considered exclusively like a lesbian press anymore. They're a pop culture publisher now. And it's like, I'm sorry, but I understand it's a tough business and you're trying to compete with Barnes and Noble. But you know what? One of the reasons that Borders went under is because they weren't giving people what they wanted, you know, and they were giving people a lot of celebrity biographies and cheap ass cookbooks. And people who love books, who are the people that you want to cultivate in your bookstore, were not finding what they wanted in there. And so they stopped shopping there. And, you know, and I mean, the erotica section was always empty in Borders. Would have a huge shelf in every store, but it would be mostly dog-eared and picked over because they weren't stocking it fast enough. My my usual spiel about this is if you went to a grocery store that had pretty good meat section and dairy section and whatever, but every time you went to like the tomatoes and lettuce that was empty and it was sort of picked over and whatever, you'd find somewhere else to shop. That's how book readers are who are in love with a genre, whether it's romance, whether it's science fiction, whether it's erotica, whatever it is. You go into that bookstore every week to buy your new books, and if there's nothing new on the shelf, you're going to stop going there. Period. And you know, we kept seeing these things in the trade where Borders was saying, oh, you know, foot traffic is down by 10%. You know, one of the reasons your foot traffic is down is because you're not restocking your shelves fast enough. Yeah, so I can't help you, you know, that kind of a thing. So, you know, and yeah, a lot of what the indie presses are publishing is stuff that the reason we're publishing it is because people want it. So, you know, it took publishers this long to catch up to BDSM. Maybe, you know, maybe this is the next thing. I don't know. Biodiversity is very important in publishing. I mean, because readers don't just want to read celebrity biographies, you know, for example. And it's hard to make a book live in the current marketplace, given that, you know, we don't have the biodiversity of retail stores that we used to have. That's the reality. But fortunately, in the digital world, at least, you know, diversity can flourish because there at least are ways for people to get their books that are not, you know, dependent on however many gatekeepers, you know, deciding to actually put that book on a physical shelf. And, you know, I mean, I understand the book industry is so tough because books are expensive. They're expensive to ship, they're expensive to print, you know, they're expensive to ship back again. You know, it's a very low margin business. The profit margin is very small, and that's why authors always used to get such a tiny piece of the pie. Now we get a bigger piece of the pie because much less of it is going to UPS and gas and, you know, and paper mills and, you know, so forth. So the reading experience, I think, hasn't changed. Why people write and why people read hasn't changed, and that's the really good thing. And the big publishers, I think, are finally catching up to that point, that their place in the ecosystem is still the same in that way. So, um, oh my God. So Elizabeth says, I don't think I ever told you that the local Books a Million shelves Slow Surrender in YA. So here's something interesting. Slow Surrender, I've been seeing one of the audiobook sellers tweeting it with the hashtag new adult. This is not a new adult book. Magic University was new adult, but new adult wasn't a category yet when I wrote Magic University. Karina is 26. She turns 27 in the course of this. New adult is like they're 20 turning 21, you know, that kind of a thing. And that's one of those things that didn't make sense to me in romance, where they were like, your heroine has to be 26. Like, she has to magically be just old enough to have some experience, so she's not a total ingenue, not a total virgin, but she has to be young enough for us to believe that this is her first true love, you know? And you're like, okay, you know, so like this is one of these rules. Like, I remember I was saying earlier that Harlequin was kind of conservative, like they had these specific way of doing things, and it's like, so YA goes up until they're 18, and then there's this gap. Characters are not allowed to be between the ages of 18 and 26, and then they're 26, you know, and it's like, and new adult is basically, okay, it's for that part in the middle. You know, it's like, okay, finally we can write some stories about people who had their first love when they were 21, you know, or whatever, you know, that kind of a thing. So yeah, so it's interesting that somehow there are people who have decided that this is new adult, and it's really not. She's a little on the naive side, but mostly because she's spent all her time in the library reading about pre-Raphaelite art, and having kind of crappy relationships, and then being like, you know, this relationship really wasn't worth it, so I'm not going to bother to try to find another boyfriend, and, you know, that kind of a thing. So, you know, she's, I don't know, sort of, yeah. A good compromise between Amazon and your local bookstore is Powell's. Yes, I in fact have links, not on my site, but from circlet.com, to Powell's also for people who want to buy. They have an affiliate program and so forth. I do have some Powell's links now that I think about it on ceciliatan.com. Yeah. The what's interesting is that that might explain, actually, that might explain this. So Slow Surrender, which was book one, says on the back of it, it says erotica. It doesn't say romance. This is interesting. The Forever line is a romance imprint, but what it actually says printed on the back, it says erotica. I don't know if you can see that. Book two says not only erotica, it says mature audience. And I've got to wonder if that's because stuff is starting to get shelved and I don't know. I don't know. That is so outside my control that, I have to wonder. But yeah, I don't know. That's one of those things too where um, I'm ambivalent. I mean, I feel like books about sex are one of the safest, easiest ways for people to learn about sex and sexuality. So, it's like, um, so I feel like I am against censorship, but I am also for responsible reading. I don't think everybody should just read anything that they're potentially not ready for, so forth. But that I think I think a lot of readers who are at that age, 15, 16, 17, 18, it's like, oh, suddenly when you're 18, you're allowed to read this. It's sort of arbitrary, but especially since, I mean, if you look at the statistics of when people actually start having sex, it's like, okay, so now more people are having sex before they're allowed to read about it. Like that doesn't seem to fit exactly, but, I don't know. Fortunately, I don't have children, so I don't have to wrestle with this with like the school system or so forth and so on. But it's like, if I had kids, I think I would be trying to talk to them and just make sure that they knew that they could come to me if they had questions and so forth, and trying to you have the conversation about sex many times. You don't just have it once when they're n years old and you think they're ready to hear about the birds and bees. It's like it should be an ongoing discussion, because they you know, certainly in my personal experience, I had to relearn things over and over again. And, you absorb different things at different times when you're ready to, and later you're like, wait, didn't my mom tell me something about that? What was she talking about? It's like I wasn't really listening because I wasn't that interested. And now all of a sudden I'm getting interested in boys. I want to know about such and such, that kind of thing. And then now I'm getting interested in girls. Now I need to know about such and such, etc. Just, I don't know. I had to come out as bisexual like 4 times because I had to kind of keep rediscovering what it meant, over and over, and trying to figure out what it meant. And did I have to keep? And then I had to keep telling people because, of course, bisexuals are the invisible sexual minority, where it's like we can kind of blend in with the monosexuals on either side if we want to. That's why there's the T-shirt that's like yes, I am bisexual. Um, the I'll put in one plug for one of my favorite charities, which is the Boston-based Bisexual Resource Center. And when you send them a donation, they send you a card, a bisexual ID card, so that you can say you are a card-carrying bisexual. So I just got my card for this year. I am a card-carrying bisexual. So yes, yes, one of my favorite charities, and they do some vital work, because there is still a lot of misinformation basically out there about what does it mean to be bisexual, and what does it mean if your kid is bisexual, et cetera. And it was years, trying to get PFLAG to stop telling parents, that, oh, they're just on the fence and they'll figure it out. They'll pick one side or the other. And it's like, well, no, actually some people do, but many of us don't, so yeah. Anyway, all right, we're coming up on time. That I'm stunned that we're coming up on 2 hours. So let's see. Remember, one lucky viewer will win an autographed copy of Slow Seduction. Email me why you think you should win, and I will pick a winner out of the results that I get. I'll read you the email address in case you can't find it on my website. I am ctan.writer@gmail. So that shouldn't be that difficult. Writer, WRITER. ctanwriter@gmail. Send me why you think you should win, and I will pick one winner. Let's see, anything else I should tell you? So I'll be reading in New York City, February 3rd, Monday night at Anbel Bacht, the Between the Covers reading series. And book 3 will be out in August. So I'm on blog tour for the next 2 weeks. So you'll see interviews with me, Q&As, some guest blogs I'm writing on various blogs here and there, and then I'll be posting a bunch of stuff in my blog in the coming 2 weeks, basically with like my trip to the Tate to see the actual art that I talk about in the in the book and whatnot like that, and how fantastic it was, and some other cool stuff, whatnot like that. That is, background information, the DVD extras, etc., and some, deleted scenes and so forth. So yeah, send me your photos of the book in the wild or your screen captures of you recommending it to your friends, and I will trade you, James's manifesto on love and some other things like that. And enjoy the book. Thank you all for being here. This was a lot of fun. I'm so glad you guys came and chatted at me through the social stream here. Ustream is awesome. This will be archived on YouTube, so if you, I don't know, feel the need to watch it again, or you have friends you want to see it, you can always send them there. It'll be on my YouTube channel. Probably, it'll take a couple of hours for stuff to upload and whatnot. So thanks for being here. Thanks for being with me, and I will see you guys in August.